The finish line is in sight. SEC Media Days in Dallas is coming to a close, and 11 Personnel is here to break it all down for you. 11 Personnel presented by Monticello Bank. I'm Nick Roush, joined by Adam Luckett here, where Radio Row is thinning out. I see more empty tables than tables with people sitting in them. It's here. We made it, Luckett. I know you can finally breathe a little.
The SEC convention is done. We've gone through it all in Kentucky, Nick. Number 16, last. They went last. It was a long wait, but we got to hear from them today. We got the best line of the week came from Sam Pittman today. And we heard a little bit about Bobby Petrino, and we heard Mark Stoops kind of give his state of the program. And overall, I think a good performance from Kentucky. I think they hit the right tone, and I think even Stoops, I think he handled kind of the A&M thing, the A&M question, as good as he could handle it for that. And I think overall they did a good job, and now it's on to training camp and on to the season.
On to Cincinnati.
Who dey?
It has been a whirlwind, a little bit crazy, a little bit chaotic. It was karaoke night last night for some of the media folks. Luckett gave his best Joe Diffie.
John Deere Green. Shout out my brother. That's his special song, and that's the song back in the day we used to go out and yell at the band to play. And so I had to go out and sing that tonight or last night, and it was a good time.
Luckett did.
Blues Brothers action. You should have seen Roush in his hat and showing off some dance moves. I think we were a big hit at the Three-Eyed Penguin?
One-Eyed Penguin.
One-Eyed Penguin.
Which definitely sounds like a euphemism. Luckett enjoyed himself last night. I realized after screaming the Blues Brothers that it's one of those things too where we're men of a certain age. We aren't at bars often, and I'm trying to socialize with other media members we don't see often. I found myself screaming, and I was like, dude, you got to get through tomorrow. You can't be screaming.
You have to talk tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. So I chilled out. We came back at the same time, but I went to bed right away. You went on an adventure, it sounds like.
Yeah, I had to find something to eat. Ended up at a gas station. 7-Eleven, it's always open. It was just a little longer walk than I thought it would be, but we had a good time.
It was a good time last night. It was an early morning for me. I was wearing my big dumb blue cowboy hat on SEC this morning, and introed into Randall Cobb, and turns out I think Randall Cobb and I might have become best friends. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. He's one of us now.
Did the eyes get you?
Dude, it's one of those things that I hadn't really noticed, and then you're standing next to him and you look at him in the eye and you're like, oh my gosh. it's like standing next to Deion Walker for the first time. You know he's a big sumbitch, but then you stand next to him and you're like, oh dear God.
He was probably thinking the same thing, just you had the hat on. The big 10-gallon blue cowboy hat that God knows where you found in Churchill Downs. And so, the hat became synonymous with KSR and Nick Roush this weekend. This week, it feels like a weekend, but hell, we've been here. We got here Sunday. We got here Sunday night. It's Thursday, and we're gonna hit the road probably Thursday night. So yeah, a long time to be in Dallas, Texas.
And the one thing we didn't crack the code, the 5-bomb code. Maybe we'll slide back in there for his last segment. But we did accomplish a lot today, and we did it all thanks to Friends of Cole. We really, really appreciate them for sponsoring this trip to SEC Media Days in Dallas. It's been a long haul, and we're here for it all. Just like Friends of Cole, they're here for the Commonwealth of Kentucky to look out for those in the coal industry, because it's played such a significant role in our state's history, and it's playing a role in our future. They provide a united voice for an industry that has and remains a critical economic contributor to Kentucky. By working together, they can provide good jobs and benefits for future generations. Coal is resilient, reliable, and affordable. Friends of Coal, it's a volunteer organization, and all are invited to join. Consists of proud Kentuckians and folks across the border. So go on over to friendsofcoalkentucky.org to learn more. That's friendsofcoalkentucky.org to learn more. We learned a lot today, Luckett. Let's go ahead and before we dive in head first to all the things that Mark Stoops and the Kentucky folks had to say today. Sam Pittman's embracing the hog.
Is that like slang for Bobby Petrino's back baby? Like,
I mean, he embraces his hog in more than one way. This is what you get. This is what you get for day 4 at SEC Media Days.
Oh my goodness, I
Cut that peak.
Okay. Sam Pittman, he always delivers. Now, last year you didn't get to see his speech because you fell asleep. Like last year, I remember he to Clark Brooks was friend of the program. He asked him a question, and Sam Pittman said, "Is that a question?" And so he always finds a way to do entertain us in some form or fashion, and that was embrace the hog, and then I think the Bobby Petrino stuff, obviously, with them.
Yeah. The thing too with Pittman is like he it's not just the gimmicks. I mean, you can feel his passion, and I just
feel the one of us energy with him.
Yeah, and he made a point today too that because I mean last year was tough, right? It was tough for him, and he was doing the thing where his seat is definitely pretty warm right now, and he pointed out we've been in the top 25, or we've been in bowl games 3 of the last 4 seasons. We've been ranked in the top 10 in 2 of the last 3. So
beat the hell out of Texas in year 2 when they went that KJ Jefferson, Rocket Sanders team. Thing with the Arkansas stuff is just like all these key pieces are elsewhere. Like Kendall Briles left for TCU. You lose KJ Jefferson to UCF. You lose
Barry Odoms and UNLV.
You lose Rocket Sanders to South Carolina. And Chris Paul Jr., maybe their best defensive player, he's going to be starting at Ole Miss this year. So there's a lot of signs that saying, hey, this probably isn't going to work out. But the Petrino thing is just fascinating to kind of see where that stands. And then for Kentucky, like to look at it through a Kentucky prism, obviously the Petrino stuff, but we just got Tavian Wallace, putting out, hey, got to play with Kentucky on the game. So what happens there if an opening comes about? You have to ask that question, I think, and that's something we're all going to be watching closely for not only the Petrino angle, but like Kentucky maybe enter the chat again for Tavian Wallace if that job came open.
I hope, just for our sake, for our entertainment's sake, that's not the case. And that job got a lot harder when Texas joined the league. He brought 3 Texas guys here. It's hard to recruit against Texas. I mean, Arkansas needs to recruit Texas. It's harder when you don't have that pull. Like you can feel the pressure, right?
It's also a sign of the times that we saw these first-year transfer quarterbacks come to media days. Mm-hmm. You used to never see that.
Never.
Like Will Levis didn't come here in 2021. You wouldn't see that, but now we saw that with Blake Shapen at Mississippi State, the Baylor quarterback who will be starting for Mississippi State this year. We saw that with Taylon Green, Boise State transfer, showed up today. It's a different kind of era that now that teams are doing that because the rosters are turning over so much. We didn't get to see Brock Vandergrift, but I think those are the 3 transfers, and 2 of them came to media days this week. So that's kind of a sign of where the sport is overall from that aspect of who you bring to media days and who you bring here to talk.
It was a little. I really want to thank the SEC for putting Hugh Freeze on while we were busy doing stuff with the Kentucky coaches, because that dude, you want to talk about put you to sleep. I would have been cocked like it.
I was trying to work on some stuff, so I wasn't fully listening to his press conference, but a big takeaway from that was he basically admitted, I hate transfer portal recruiting. And the big talking point.
He's good at the regular high school recruiting, too.
That's what he said. That's not a strength of mine. And then I thought, to keep on this point, I think the big talking point is like, why didn't he go get another transfer quarterback? Why are they rolling with Peyton Thorne? Why wouldn't you just go try to get that? I think maybe some of that was he just didn't want to do the song and dance that comes with that. And then also he admitted pretty much like, I'm bad at not getting my team ready for like the normal games. Like when we play the big dogs and we play in big rivalry games or games where we're dogs in, I'm really good at like getting them ready. But I got to get better about getting them ready for like the New Mexico State game they lost last year, for losing it to Ole Miss at home, games like that. So, he's another coach, Nick, that's like this is a low-key, a really big year for him. Like they really need to show proof of concept, and they really need to start scoring some points because again, it's another team with another brutal schedule, but the league's full of those right now.
It certainly is. It was kind of funny too that I think most Kentucky fans, most have moved on from the Mark Stoops A&M thing, but it wasn't going to go away. Certainly not here. Certainly when you have Texas A&M going on the same day, and a lot of these guys in the national media, they haven't had their chance to ask that question to Mark Stoops to see, hey, what the hell happened here? And so we got that, and that was one of the. I really wasn't sure how just Mark Stoops, because he had been so reserved, how he was going to handle this event. And in a lot of the cases, I felt like he handled those questions well. He handled it with a little bit of humor. And, he brought up when he was responding about A&M, he did there was conversations, but out of respect of everybody, I'm going to leave it at that. And then
aggressively. Yes. What's the term or the phrase?
And then he went on to talk about how grateful he is to be one of 19 coaches at Kentucky. There's only so many opportunities. So we really kind of turn it back to the Kentucky lens. But it's weird, like not having Saban be the longest, like Stoops. He used to be coming to this kind of, I don't know if nervous is the right way, but he wasn't comfortable speaking in a room to 500 people with like the lights blinding you and you can't see who's out there.
He was today.
Yeah, I mean, when he got asked about Cal, it was, we had a great relationship. There was a little blip there, and that got some laughs. He opened it up. I don't think too many people got the joke, except for Bob Holt. Bob Holt chuckled at it when he said, "It's not SEC media days if I'm not talking about a new offensive coordinator."
Yes, yeah.
He thanked the great state of Texas for purchasing his RD1 bourbon. So he was relaxed, and then he was surprisingly, I don't want to say on the attack, but there wasn't any sort of, he's not, I don't want to say tempering expectations, but I thought it would be like a tempered expectations. He's like, no. We're pushing forward. We want more. We're not here just to exist.
I think it was the right phrasing based off the last two seasons we've seen from Kentucky. Because we all know, his lasting legacy is going to be that he built a consistent winner, like a consistent team that never had drop-offs, but could always was a borderline top 25 team essentially. Mm-hmm. That's what you could always count on them being. And then there was the 2 seasons where they punched up. Mm-hmm. And so that's always going to be, when we write the Mark Stoops Kentucky book, or you talk about him, when they make a SEC story about the Mark Stoops era, mm-hmm. that's going to be the big kind of what he did at Kentucky compared to the program's history. But there's a big but. It's, can they get it up? Can you get them to the playoffs? Can you get to 10-2? Can you do what Missouri did last year? And can you get this team to the 12-teamer or the 14-teamer when you go to 2026? And I think that's what at home, that's what people are asking. When you have discussions about Kentucky football, that is the dialogue. That's where it goes. So I think it was very good messaging on Stoops' part of acknowledging that. And that's what I thought he did. Acknowledge that, hey, we've done good things. We're doing good things. I want that to be known. I want to point that out. But at the same time, we are still trying to get to that next level. I'm
not satisfied. And it was
another thing. People are wondering, is he satisfied? How much longer is he going to do this?
Is he mailing it in?
Yeah. Is he just ready to, is he fine? Yeah, is he mailing it in? Is a good phrase for that.
I like that. So they have us, essentially how it works at SEC Media Days, before he answers questions from everybody, we all the local media get a chance to speak with him privately. There was a little snafu too, and I was a little ticked off by that. Security was just, we had Paul Blart not letting somebody in because I forgot to send a message. I mean, it was very stupid. I was very ticked off, but we called an audible. We were fine. But the funny thing is Jeremy Jarman, shout out, former Kentucky great, he asked the question. It was basically pulling a quote from Mike Tomlin. And Stoops really respects Mike Tomlin, loves Mike Tomlin. And I think they have, you see some similarities there, the hard-nosed, tough mindset. I think Stoops wants to be, that might be a coaching kind of role model, for the lack of a better term. And when he's he mentioned Tomlin. It was like in response, he was like, I mean, they just keep doing winning seasons. Like even when they're bad, it's winning seasons. And that was, Stoops said, I don't want to diminish that. But if you think about it, I mean, look at the best season of our lives, of our childhoods, were 7-5s. And then now,
in the middle of the year, they could not complete a forward pass. I mean, like there was 3 games there where the passing game was just utterly atrocious in conference play. And they still found a way to win 10 ball games.
So for his words, it's not nothing, but like to know that, all right, we still, like there's a lot to do and there's a lot of things changing, which is what I want to get into. And part of those changes is, it was kind of subtle, but he essentially was also talking about the pony up comment, right? Like, I even hate mentioning it because people get just triggered, like, pony up. But he did the nice way of saying it. And Ed was saying that
fundraising. Yeah.
He said that fundraising, it is his most difficult part of the job right now. And that, like, he's like, but it's worth it. It's worth it for our players. And we're going to continue to invest, but we need help. And so I like the way he worded that, but that also shows that, like, while he's juggling all these things on the field, it's this part of it that to be competitive in the future and to move forward, he has to do that other stuff. And I think it came natural for him when he was doing like the stadium fundraising and stuff and hobnobbing with boosters, but fundraising for nil is a completely different ballgame.
Yeah, it's nonstop. I mean, it's all the time. And what have you done for me lately? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. But that is only just a part of it, because the other part of his job right now is figuring out what the hell's next. So Pete Thamel from ESPN, he was doing live hits here today. He reported that essentially, here's what we're giving back to schools. What do y'all think? Is a roster limit set at 105, which is smaller than what they're working with now. From a roster size, it's 130-ish, give or take. I don't know what Kentucky's is, probably in the 120s. Yeah. That's about how most operate. So you would get a smaller overall roster size, but there's going to be 20 more scholarship players. And when I asked him about recruiting, I'm like, well, you don't know how many players are in your team, so what's your message to your coaches? And he said, let's go. Like we're going to have to get more guys than we probably normally would.
Right.
I mean,
signing classes are going to be bigger. Like on signing day, I'm going to have to write more scouting reports on these guys. We're going to have to write more commitment posts. So yeah, your signing classes in an individual year are going to be bigger.
And that fascinates me, but it's also just one of the challenges of being a coach. Like it's not. I think if we were to pinpoint one specific thing that Kentucky needs to do to just flip the script from the last 2 years, it's just executing critical situations. Don't turn the ball over late games. Don't make stupid penalties. Like the margin of error is slim, and you've just shot yourself in the foot one too many times in these late game situations. It cost you the Clemson game, it cost you the South Carolina game, it almost cost you the Louisville game when Leary threw that ball up in the air. And then responding to adversity, they didn't do it against Missouri. He mentioned that. They crumbled after that fake punt. But in the meanwhile, he spent all offseason having to figure out how to build a roster, raise nil funds, and also build a roster where he doesn't know how many players are going to be on it. I mean, it's
sure. I mean, you've got to be flexible. This is all fluid situation. Don't know how it's going to happen. Ross Dellinger reported today at Yahoo Sports that, these are what the coaches are thinking it's going to cost to buy, to support your, how much money you need, however much of that million was. I think it
was 15 of 22. So 22 million per school, 15 of it to an SEC football program.
I think 70% or 80% to the football team, and then 20 to 30% to the rest of campus. But is Title IX going to be cool with that? Then that was kind of the thing. Well, we think. I mean, we don't know, but I guess we'll see. And that's all. I mean, that's a fluid situation that everyone is trying to work towards. And Nick, like, to me, on the roster limits, like, they're just gonna have to get, like, it's 100, dude. Like, I know they want more, but this is a financial thing. Like, it's dollars and cents. I mean, it's balanced in a budget sheet, and you're gonna have to come up with that's what I wonder. Do the SEC and Big Ten, could they do more than Big 12, ACC?
I don't know, but I bet some people would push back on that.
Yeah, like 105 to me. NFL team has 53, and what's it, 20? I don't know the practice squad numbers off the top of my head. I think it's 20 or so.
Yeah.
And then I guess you can add more on the practice squad if you got guys on the pup list or whatever. So I'll be interested to see how many, even a team that was really like a lot of injuries, like how many players do they go through in the NFL grind? And for college, what it really hurts them, like we talked about this, is practice. It's not necessarily the games, as we've got some stuff going on up here.
What is happening? There's so many people here. Leaders, SE, is it?
Leadership.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I left my stuff out there. I hope they don't take my seat. You mentioned the injuries, though, because that's the biggest difference. That's why the rosters need to be bigger.
How many do they get? That's a real question. I don't know. How many do you need?
Well, because the issue that they argue is NFL, you can sign free agents,
sure.
Right? You can't do that at the college level. But like Kentucky, they were able to. They kind of the timing of everything with their injury situation, they're able to go get a JUCO guy, Dennis Jackson, to help fortify at the nose guard position. And Stoops acknowledged that Josiah Hayes and Tavian Gadsden. So we had previously reported that Hayes had torn his Achilles. Tavian Gadsden suffered a significant injury. I don't know exactly which position he was going to play, but
you got Darian Henry Young that's probably not going to be available until October, and that might be the earliest.
Yeah, we're pretty sure he tore something in his knee towards the end of last season. So, but they still feel pretty good about the depth, right? Like Deion Walker, he said, "I'm willing to play anywhere." It was a great quote. He'll move around all over the place. But I was fascinated too the way he mentioned Trayvon Ribka. Okay, I could see Ribka. He's a stout defensive end. Move him inside to shade. I could see that working. But Stoops and Walker both mentioned Khalil Saunders as a guy who took a step forward. And we've talked a lot about Tyrese Fearbry. Saunders might be a guy that we're sleeping on a little bit in this pass rush.
Yeah, year 4, it's not necessarily that. It's just eating snaps and snap volume. Like you need a guy that can come in and just eat some snaps. And so I think there was a lot of confidence about the defense overall today, Nick. But I think the defensive line depth, is concerning. That's a real concerning for Kentucky entering this season.
But Deion Walker's pretty big. He's pretty awesome. He was fun to talk to today. He had a really cool chain, the bear with the crown on it. That was sweet.
Yeah. And I also wonder, dating back to the roster limits, instead of a walk-on, a guy that we would do a walk-on, could you convince a guy that would go to Conference USA to come here, like an in-state guy? Could you convince someone like that, like Jake Cook, who was an offensive lineman that went to Ball State? I believe he played at Woodford County. That's just a name that popped in my head. Is that guy you could just add? Is
that a guy that you want though? That's where I'm fascinated about how they treat that. Where you're basically almost like signing up for a practice squad with the chance of potentially moving up. Yeah,
but I think you could sell it almost as, especially offensive line, we want you to come in and develop and compete. So does that, in a way, who does that help more? Does it help the Georgias, or Georgia's stealing, or do they start stealing players from more mid-tier kind of?
I think that's the fear.
Or is it? Yeah, I guess maybe so. So they get you, but the quality of the quality of the lower schools in the conference, their roster might decline. That's fascinating to see how that plays out. But we don't know. A lot of it's, there's NIL driven. NIL, the money has dispersed the talent more, I would say. Not all the way. It's not totally even, and I don't think true parity is coming, but the talent is being dispensed better, and then the portal on top of that. So you're getting more balanced rosters overall. But what does that look like? What does a 35-man class look? I'm thinking about covering a 35-man commitment class. What does that look like for us?
Oh, it's wild how things have changed over Mark Stoops' 12 years, coming to SEC Media Days. That's right, his 12th SEC Media Day. I've been to about 8 of them, I think. Or they got one canceled one year for COVID. That stunk. That was a bummer, because this is a lot of fun. It was cool seeing D-Jack kind of embrace the spotlight. He was a quiet kid.
Slim.
Yeah. Yeah, which he said he wanted to prove that he could run. that was a message he wanted to make clear this year. But when he first got here, John Summerall would just make him talk to everybody he passed, just to make him talk, because he was a quiet guy, didn't want to do that. Now he's sharing a story about how he's dedicating the season to his grandmother who passed away, who, because of his mother's health, she had to basically raise him and taught him how to overcome adversity. A guy who had to drive through the night, sleep in his car, go camp just to get an offer from Summerall, comes in, earns a starting spot, tears his Achilles, comes back 6 months later and is playing in November. I mean, that was remarkable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could have some other remarkable situations with the defensive line, health issues, but like D-Jack, I mean, he led the team in tackles against Louisville, and he said that was the game where I knew, right? Like, I knew I could make it. So, great stories shared by him, and Marcus Cox was hilarious. He's big old boy. I was sitting next to you like this is his 7th football season.
Yeah. Class of 2017? 18.
Crazy. He started almost 40 games in Northern Illinois, then started 13 games here.
True freshman at Northern Illinois when Kentucky won the Citrus Bowl with Josh Allen and Benny Snell.
That's crazy. And I mean, he's done a lot, and really, this was the reason why he's got this many years is health was one of the issues. He has a medical red shirt, I believe, which is part of the reason he got here. And so he's like, all right, I got all off season. I need to get more flexible. So now he's doing Pilates, and it's a hilarious reel that is up on our social medias. You can find it KSRIG. It's going to be on Twitter later. He was hilarious talking about Pilates and how challenging it was. He was teaching Peak how to do breathing exercises. Marcus Cox is fun. That was fun today, hearing from him. I'm trying to think. 2 more. Oh, Alex Safari playing linebacker.
Yeah. I think that's a way to get it. Like, Alex Safari is one of your best 11 players, I think. Find a way to get him on the field. I'll be interested to see how they kind of utilize him. And, like, in that linebacker room, you got a top 3 of De'Aaron Jackson, Pop Dumas-Johnson, and Alex Safari.
It's pretty good.
Those are 3 very good college football players. So excited about that group. I think overall, Nick, just, again, I think there's some excitement about this defense. Just kind of like starting to get into the season and start doing the research and looking at them, like, Kentucky's defense got a chance to really be good this season. And if you, like, what does that lead to? You know, if you can have another top 15 defense, what does that lead to? And then offensively, a message from Stoops today was pretty much, we've got some skill talent. We've got some playmakers. We know we can create some explosives, but we have to be able to run the football, and we have to be able to run the football efficiently. And a lot of that comes down to the offensive line. I mean, a lot is riding on them, and it seems like they're still kind of depending on them to be like this top level group. I just don't know if they can get there. Would be my comeback to that. So I'm very intrigued to see what that looks like, because if it doesn't work this year, you know, how's it really? Then you maybe have to figure something out, because you got all this experience, man. Like, you're never really going to have more experience than they have this year. You got depth across the board. You don't have the stars, but, like, can you carve out a good offensive line out of this group? And it sounds like if they can't do that, they might struggle on offense. I mean, to me, that's what it kind of sounded like. If we don't get, like, our offensive line will really determine what the ceiling of your offense will be. And that was a big talking point all week. You know, running the football, yada yada yada, physical. But Kentucky's got, to me, it comes in the run game. Can you move people off the spot? And if they can't do it, can we realistically expect this offensive line to ever do it?
We'll certainly see. We're less than 50 days away from the start of the college football season. You're right. There is way. The season's about to start. That was right in my ear, that guy screaming, no way. It's been chaotic. It's been hectic. We're happy to be here. We're happy that Monticello Bank is the presenting sponsor of 11 Personnel. They're putting the people first. It's where people matter. It's kept them in business for 128 years. Reliable friends you can trust at Monticello Bank, 21 branches in 14 different counties across the Commonwealth. You can visit them online at nbcbank.com. Whew. It's been a week, Luckett.
Yeah, I think overall, just looking ahead, I think Kentucky's in a good spot. The schedule is an absolute brute, but they've got some really nice pieces on this football team. And it seems like Mark Stoops, that's like the 5th time he said, I love this team. Like he really hit that note a bunch of times in the spring. And he doesn't do that all the time. Like, I wouldn't say he does that every offseason. So that is something new. So I think they have some quiet confidence over there, and they like this football team. But, again, you got to go out and win some games, and they haven't won close ones. Like, you got to go out and win some close games because that's really what this all comes down to.
Hearing from Mark Stoops got me fired up to see the Cats at Kroger Field this fall. I know you might be sad that we're done, but we're not done just yet. We're sending you off this week with our coverage from Dallas with a candid conversation from our friends from That SEC Podcast. It's Cousin Shane and SEC Mike. 11 Personnel is back on Radio Row, and we're here with our good friends from That SEC Podcast. It's SEC Mike, Cousin Shane. Boys, thanks for letting us borrow your setup. This is real kind of you, real generous.
Yeah, this is going to be our best interview of the week because you don't have to see us. You just have to hear us.
Exactly. You all should.
It's tough enough doing one show, running one show, and now we're doing 2. Mike,
Well, we're doing 2 together. We're going to be on That SEC Podcast at some point. Y'all recording plenty of interviews. And before we start, I want to say, if you're looking for another SEC podcast out there to hear the whole league, these guys do a great job. And SEC Mike, he gets a lot of. He might get some guff from some people. They might call him Stephen A. SEC Mike. They might think Cousin Shane's just a goofball, but they're putting in the hard work. You don't see all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So, Michael, I want to just say, hey, great job. It's really cool. Like, we started powwowing around how long ago? And I was like, who are these guys? And now you're like the most popular guys on Radio Row.
You know what that reminded me of? Josh Pate, he featured me on his show the other day.
Yeah.
They butter you up, and then they trash you for the rest of the interview, right. So I'm getting ready for it.
I was looking to see if our laces are getting tied here together.
I do want to ask you, though, Shane, because you were all over Missouri last year when everybody was talking about Drinkwitz being on the hot seat, and then he goes and wins 11 games. You like Kentucky this year. Explain to Big Blue Nation, the KSR audience, why you think Kentucky could have a similar pop.
Well, it's funny because last year the reason I was looking at Mizzou was mainly the defense at first. I wasn't expecting as an explosive offense as we saw with Missouri, especially late last season, but I was looking at that defense, returning production, the offensive line, the stuff people, that's not what anybody wants to talk about here.
Right, right.
They don't want to talk about those big uglies up front.
We want to rank quarterbacks.
Yeah, they want to talk quarterbacks. They want to talk wide receiver room. Well, then when you break down Mizzou, it was like, well, look at this awesome wide receiver room they have. Well, guess who has an awesome wide receiver room this year? Big Blue Nation. And then you're talking about quarterback. Well, coming in, you got to remember, we weren't high on Cook. We'd be lying if we told you we were. We became Cook fans throughout the season. Why can't Vandegrift be that guy toward the end of this season?
5-star prospect. Look at he was ranked around the same where Carson Beck was, and Beck was an unknown, right? He came in and popped off the page.
Yeah, I think if you were going to draw out how does Kentucky exceed expectations, that's how it happens. It's quarterback. The quarterback is better than probably we all think he can be, and then you look up and you're like, oh, hey, they're winning some games we didn't think they were going to win.
Absolutely. And you're looking at the best opportunities that you have other than Georgia are going to be at home. You win your home games, you're going to have a tough road go. I'm looking here, we got Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida, and Texas. But if you win one of those, 2 of those maybe, we may turn around and say, damn, we all slip on Kentucky.
I'm curious, Mike, because the team you're really bullish on this year is Texas A&M, and I love it because Texas needs a harsh welcome to the SEC. But I'm curious if you would be as bullish on them if Thanksgiving Saturday the Mark Stoops deal does get done. Would you? Because he's a coach, right? But him
Absolutely.
and Elko have a pretty similar resume. I think just the biggest difference is Elko's time with Jimbo was at A&M, where he's going to coach now, and Stoops' was 15 years ago at Florida State.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. If Stoops was the coach, it'd be just as bad as it was under Jimbo Fisher. That's why I'm high on A&M, because they got rid of Jimbo's ass, and I think they may have upgraded with Mike Elko.
Is a big part of that just the package deal with Colin Klein, an offensive coordinator?
Well, certainly. That's your first move when you're whatever side you specialize in. Elko, obviously, defensive side. whoever he hires on the offensive side is going to dictate their overall success, and that'll go for many coaches. And I love the fact that he got Colin Klein to leave his university, his alma mater.
Yeah.
A pretty good team. It's not like Kansas State is bad or anything, but I think that speaks to what can be done in A&M, and I'm sure money talks and all that, but I think there's a real belief that A&M can win big in this league.
Well, and piggybacking off that, Stoops got Bush Hamden to leave his alma mater at Boise State. They got, Ashton Genty is probably the top running back NFL draft prospect, preseason Mountain West Player of the Year. They're picked to win the Mountain West, so he left something pretty good to be here. Are you tempering all Hamden expectations, or do you think maybe he's seeing something in Kentucky that could be special?
I'll just cut you off. I'm tempering, and I'll tell you why. Because he was at Missouri, and he had an opportunity to be the offensive coordinator, and Drink essentially passed, which, fair or not, that's kind of where I'm at with that. Now,
okay.
I think Drink certainly needed to make a hire at offensive coordinator, and when he hired Kirby Moore, that was a huge reason why
career changing.
They took off at Missouri. If he had stayed offensive coordinator, he may not be head coach right now.
I just love when we come on here and it just becomes the Missouri Power Hour, the Missouri infomercial. Can we talk about anything but Missouri right now?
Well, I'll do you one better, because I know Roush is down on Missouri, and that's fair. That's totally fair. But Shane, we had Drake on the show. He asked, can I bang the drum for when Oklahoma comes to town? Shane's thinking it's going to be, Missouri's undefeated. Oklahoma's like 9-1. He's hoping it's the game of the year. He's going to be down there beating the drum. And I said at dinner, how hilarious would it be if Missouri's 4-8 and Oklahoma's 5-6, and you're down there banging the drum and there's not a damn person in the stands?
Now, let me ask you all a question. What happens if Nico disappoints and he's not as good?
Show we gotta wrap it up here.
What happens if that? That's just. I'm not saying they are. I'm not
predicting. What does disappoints mean, though?
If the volleyball player turns into a pumpkin, if he's more Joe Milton than Hendon Hooker.
Yeah. Have you seen him throw the football?
Well, we're just talking out loud. We're just talking out loud.
Just talk with us.
I'm not so much worried about Nico failing. I'm worried about Nico's health. He's not a big guy, and that quarterback room is not good. It's not
the backup's a walk-on.
That's the scary part. If you're coming from Tennessee, is here you got a guy that's going to be mobile, that just got that dog in him, and he's going to want to, just like your quarterback, he's just going to want to tuck and go. Yeah. But if he gets hit too many times or gets hit the wrong way, then what does Tennessee's outlook look like then?
And Heupel, it's not that he's crapping out running backs, but anybody can run for a lot of yards, but also do they have enough guys in there?
Yeah.
Can't is that still feasible if Nico isn't as good?
Very unproven at running back, but there's talent.
Yeah. The reason I ask is because of the backup situation, and because since they made him the $8 million man, all the chips are okay. Since they made him the $8 million man, all the chips seem to be in that basket. I'm not saying it's a bad bet to bet on, but what happened? I think it looks a lot different in. It might look a lot different for Heupel let's just say he's not the top quarterback. Let's say he's good, but not great. We just
heard Heupel the other day, and one of the things he talked about was not so much Nico, was just the competitive depth that he has on that roster. And I think that's one of the things that we may be overlooking with the Tennessee Vols is this is his best roster since he's been there. It's the deepest roster. And if you look at where Tennessee struggled, it's late in the season with that competitive depth.
Yeah, who doesn't have competitive depth? I think the whole league's got competitive depth. I think everyone's got the deepest roster they've ever had this year. It's going to be a hell of a. Let's go to the NFL. What are we doing playing college ball?
So here's a take that I had last year about Tennessee that I don't. It didn't age well and it wasn't correct, but I think could play into the Nico factor was. Part of the reason Hendon Hooker was so good was he also had Jalen Hyatt and he had they had some really talented wide receivers. Mm-hmm. Is there a worry that Nico needs some more help out there? Are y'all confident in that pass catching group?
Possibly. I don't think the receivers are going to be an issue personally with Brew McCoy coming back from injury. Squirrel White is really good. They got a freshman guy really should know, Mike Matthews. Yeah. Rusty. We asked him at the On3 event in Nashville a couple months ago, who are the true freshmen that are going to make an impact in this league? He only mentioned 3 guys. Mm-hmm. One of them, Georgia's the top safety, and Mike Matthews was one of the others. Now, Heupel doesn't play a lot of young receivers, so I don't know if he'll truly make an impact, but he's got that Hyatt speed, but he's a bigger Hyatt. So, that's kind of scary. They had Thornton come on. He was a transfer last year from Oregon.
Tulane transfer.
As soon as he got in there, though, and started making plays, he got hurt. Chris Brazel, the Tulane transfer. They've got some, again,
Brazel was a big guy. Yeah.
Unproven tight ends, but some talented tight ends. I don't think weapons is going to be a problem. I really don't.
I wish it was. I wish it was.
It's the scheme. It's the scheme.
Yeah.
I think Hyatt, I'm not trying to discredit him. He was amazing. But does he do that if he's at Kentucky? Does he do that if he's at Georgia?
He's not doing it right now. He's not doing it right now with the Giants.
Yeah.
I think in our lifetime. So I think a lot of it is the scheme.
There's big Deion Walker, man. Whew. He's going to be all over that volleyball player. Y'all are in trouble. Hey, once again, I buttered you up, but seriously, you guys do a great job. Appreciate you hanging out with us.
You're okay. You're okay.
Yeah.
There, we said
The
something
most
nice.
okayest interview ever.
SEC Mike, Cousin Shane, that SEC podcast. Appreciate y'all joining 11 Personnel.
Hey,
Yeah,
you too,
absolutely.
brother.
Anytime.
Absolutely.